They took my brother to work, but they didn't take me. So my life was still 50-50. I might go the next day to work, or they might take me where my parents are. My name is Ernie Gross. I was born in Romania, Transylvania, and the name of the town is Turt. Just because I have a beard, that doesn't mean I'm a professor. It doesn't even mean that I'm a rabbi, and definitely I'm not a speaker, because I grew up very shy, and I never spoke to anybody, I never laughed. As a matter of fact, on Saturday when I went to synagogue, I heard him saying, "Here comes the boy who never laughs." But I do have a mental screen in front of me. Whatever I see there, I will relate to you. If some of you have a hard time to understand me because of my accent, that's really not my fault. When I came over here, I didn't have it. I got it here. We were 7 children in the family. We were 5 brothers and 2 sisters. And ahead of me was 3 brothers. I was the 4th one. And because I was the 4th one, things were not going good for me at all as I was growing up. We had a house with 3 rooms. The middle was a kitchen, and both sides was a bedroom. Each room had 2 beds. In each bed, 2 people slept, which makes it 8, but we were 9. So I was the one who was a leftover all the time. Every night I had to go to my mother, ask her, where am I going to sleep tonight? When I went to school, was not any better either. Because I was Jewish, the teacher don't like Jewish people. He didn't even pay attention to me. And like I'm not even there. The few students who dominated the class, they didn't notice me either. When lunchtime came, the teacher went for lunch, but we had lunch at the desk. And because the students knew that I'm kosher, they always bullied me. Like they will take ham or bacon, rub it on my lips, because they knew I'm not allowed to taste it. And I was very ashamed of this. I was afraid to tell my parents about this. I was afraid to tell my brothers, so I kept it to myself. Because of that, I grew up not a happy child. In 1941-42, the Hungarian came in, and they were worse than the Romanian, because we had to, as soon as they took over Transylvania, all the Jewish people had to wear a yellow band. And later on, they decided that's not good enough, so on the left side of the chest, we had to wear a yellow star. Before they came in, I went to regular school, public school, till 3 o'clock, and after 3 o'clock I went to Hebrew school, but the Hungarian didn't like that. Once we came home from school, we had to stay in line and work for the city. Everybody who was 12 years old up to 20 had to work for the city, like cleaning the streets or beautify the church outside, cut the grass, whatever he needed. And Jewish boys from 20 to 25, they went into the army, but not as a soldier. They went in like as a laborer. And that's how it was till 1944 April. The first day after Passover, early in the morning, there were 2 Hungarian police knocking at the door, and they told us within an hour, everybody had to be in the synagogue. If they find you outside the synagogue, we don't have to ask no question, we have a right to shoot you. If you have any money in your pocket, leave it on the table. If you have any jewelry, take them off from your hand or from your neck. And when you leave the house, don't lock the door. When my mother saw the police, it was a completely surprise, because when they were walking on the street, my mother used to invite them to the house. She used to give them sometimes a small, in Romania, everybody liked the whiskey there, a small whiskey with a cake that my mother baked, and we were more like friends. We saw each other so many times. No problem. We went to synagogue every Saturday. You were not afraid to walk on the street. So when they gave us an order like that, how could you change from being a nice guy to be such a bad guy? But once we saw they have weapons, then we knew we have to follow orders. We were in the synagogue for 3 days. It was very devastating there because those days you didn't have no water in the house. You had to go to a well to bring water. We had no electricity. If you had to go to the bathroom, you had to go outside. So when we were locked into the synagogue, if somebody had to go to the bathroom, had to go in the corner wherever he found one. For the boys and the men, it wasn't that bad, but for the woman, it was devastating to do that in front of everybody. So because the windows were closed and the doors were closed, it was very smelly there. You almost didn't have no air. And after the 3 days, they opened the doors, and we were very happy that we're going to breathe fresh air. But we didn't know that there's going to be a line of horse and wagon. They told us to go into those horse and wagon and go deep in Hungary to a ghetto. Once we got in the ghetto, in a regular family home, they put in 3-4 families, and when night time came, everybody slept on the floor. If you walked on the street and you had a beard or you had payas, the Hungarian guards walked around with scissors, and for fun they will just cut off part of the beard. And I remember the rabbi from our town and the dayan, who is like a judge, they said, not us. We are God's people. Nothing is going to happen to us. And when those soldiers were cutting off part of their beard, then they realized that everybody is equal. There's no difference who you are. And after 3 months being there, all of a sudden the trains came, and we all went to Auschwitz. We got off on the trains, and we couldn't wait to arrive already, even though we didn't know where we were going, because it was very smelly in the train. Once we got there, we were standing in line. We had to face a Nazi and a German Shepherd. And he's the one who made the decision who should live and who should die. And there was already prisoners from Poland working in Auschwitz, and one of them, who was working at the train that we got off, came over to me and he asked me how old I am. And I told him that I am 15. He said, when you face a Nazi, you better say you're 17. Because if you say you're 15, you will go where your parents went. I said, where did my parents go? He said, because your father was holding on to a younger brother, and your mother was holding on to a younger sister, they went to the left. I asked him what happens when you go to the left. He said they're going to go into an empty building, and they're going to tell them they're taking a shower to get undressed, and instead of shower, gas came, and they died immediately, and they're going to be shoved into the ovens. I didn't have time to digest what he told me. I was busy with myself. Suppose the Nazis are not going to believe me that I'm 17, and I'm also going to go there with my parents. So finally the line was moving up. My 2 older brothers were in front of me, and they passed right away. He told them to go to the right. When my turn came, he actually asked me how old I am, and he didn't want to come out. I was like choking to say 17. And then he asked me again. This time I said it loud, I'm 17. He told me to go with my brothers. So at least I'm not going to be alone, I'm going to be with my brothers. We also went into an empty building. It was late in the afternoon. And when nighttime came, everybody slept in that building. On the floor, there was nothing there, just an empty building. The next day, we were lining up again, facing the same Nazi with a German Shepherd, every time I looked at the shepherd, I was more scared from him than from the Nazi. This time they took my brother to work, but they didn't take me. So my life was still 50-50. I might go the next day to work, or they might take me where my parents are. The next day, they were so desperate for workers, they even didn't bother looking my age. And because I was there a short time, I never got my number on my arm. I got it later on my jacket, and this is a number I will never forget. It was 71,360. Before they took me to a camp, you had to be on the field. In the middle of the field was a big table, and on the table was full with shavers, but not electric, but hand shavers. And they told us to get undressed, and they will, everybody has to shave everybody's hair. And then they gave us prison clothes, and on the prison clothes was my number. And when I looked over the fence, there was a woman camp, and they did the same thing to them. They had to shave each other off and put on the same clothes that I had. Once they were dressed, you couldn't tell the difference between a man and a woman. We both looked alike. We didn't have hair nowhere, same kind of outfit, so you couldn't tell the difference. Sometimes we were working together, and I never knew who's a man, who's a woman, unless they said something. I was able to tell from the voice. We arrived in a city, it's called Kaufering, and that city had 7 camps, and you were starting from camp 1. Once you are there for a month, you have to learn how to survive, how to do more than you're getting, because you are always hungry, or too tired, or too hot, or too cold. So you had to figure out what to do. The first thing happened when we arrived in the camp, they gave you something like this from aluminum and a spoon. And they told us, you cannot afford to lose this, because this is when you're going to get your food. If you lose it, we won't be able to give you food. So every morning, we got like a little bit of black coffee. At night when we came in, we got a ladle of soup. If you're lucky that the one who served you went all the way down to the bottom, then you got a potato or two. If not, you got just clear soup. So I made sure I'm not losing it. So I found a piece of string, and wherever I went, this one went with me. Even when I went to sleep, I put it on to make sure I'm not losing it. The next thing happens in camp, when you came in, we got a loaf of bread like this, and this was supposed to be divided to 8 people. So out of the 8, we designated a man to make sure that he makes each slice equal, because every crumb, when you're hungry, every crumb counted. But we didn't know how to do this, because the middle was always a little bigger. So we took 8 pieces of paper, if we put a number from 1 to 8, and the same thing we put in a bag. Everybody took a number. In my group was a father and son. It just so happened the father took the smallest piece of bread, and the son took the largest, the middle one. And I saw the father looking at the son all the time. Finally, he said to him, "Son, you know I need more energy than you. How about we change? I give you my end, and you give me the middle piece." The son thought for a minute, and he said, "I'm not going to do it. I'm just as hungry as you are, and I'm going to keep my larger piece." That's when I learned the first lesson in the camp. In order to survive, you have to be selfish. If you happen to have an extra piece of food, you don't share it with anybody, because the chances are you're not going to make it. Once you're in camp for about more than a month, you find out that people who were heavy smokers in Europe, they're addicted to cigarettes, and here you're not getting it. They were going out of their mind. They couldn't sleep, they couldn't do anything. They were willing to give up their piece of bread for 7 cigarette butts. The way they were thinking, that every day they're going to smoke one or cigarette butts, so they know they're safe for 7 days not to be going out of their mind. And the way I was looking at it, he gave me the piece of bread, then I knew I'm going to survive 7 more days. So that's what you have to do in order to survive. And then I found one prisoner came in my barrack and he told me, you know your cousin Yedemeyer and Joseph? Yedemeyer found a potato. I think you should go there. There's no way he's not going to share it with you. You mean you grew up together. And I felt it's a good idea. Now from my barrack to his barrack, it took 5 minutes to get there. During the 5 minutes, I'm trying to think what to say to him not to refuse me, because there's no way I could accept he should not help me when I was so hungry. I go in there and I confronted him. That I told him, I know you found a potato. You don't have to give me. How about just, when you peel the skin, just give me the skin. I figured he's not going to refuse me that. And he said to me, let me think it over. I already knew there's a problem. And he comes back and tells me, I'm not going to peel it. I'm just going to wash it, eat it as it is. But if I give you a little piece, that means you might not survive and I might not survive. If I keep it for myself, and every time I eat a little piece, maybe I survive. So those are the lessons taught me how to survive. Well, as I mentioned, we were never able to organize anything. Once you were in a camp, like a couple of weeks, they were afraid that you're going to, get together and organize something. That's why they push you from camp to camp. Plus, you couldn't even run away because of the prison clothes, because we felt all Germans are alike. If they're going to see you, they're going to report you right away, or they themselves will shoot you. So we didn't even try. If somebody tried, was never successful, and they will get everybody out of the barracks in the middle of the, like a stadium there, and they will hang him in front of us. And they were telling us, if you're going to do the same thing, that's going to happen to you. So when we saw that one, nobody even tried to escape. As I was marching to go to work, we were marching 3 in a row, and the man to my right told me that yesterday he lost his wife, or 2 days ago, and his son, 10 years old. They went to the left. He knows what happened to them. If I'm going to survive, I'm not going to believe in God. If God was able to do this to me, there is no God, and I'm going to do whatever I feel like to make my life happy. The man to my left overheard that, and he told me he never believed in anything. If I'm going to survive, then I'm going to become very religious. So everybody had a different opinion about the camp, why things like that happened to us. Because I was always hungry and tired, and in summertime too hot, wintertime too cold, I was never really able to sleep. The camp was lit. There were towers around the fence, and after 9 o'clock, you were not allowed to go out from your barrack at night. And if a soldier from the tower sees you walking anywhere, he had the right to shoot you. So we know after 9 o'clock not to go out. But one night, the American planes came to bomb, and when that happens, they shut off all the lights so they shouldn't see there's a camp, and it's dark like anything. So I had an idea, while it's dark and the guards cannot see me, I'm going to run to the kitchen and get a few potatoes and come right back home. Going down there was no problem. Coming back, if the lights come on before you get to your barrack, then you're done. But when you're hungry, you take those chances. I was almost near my barrack and I was happy. All of a sudden I got attacked by 3 prisoners who were just going to the kitchen. They decided instead of going there, they're going to attack me and take away the potatoes from me. By the time everything was over, one of my shoes was missing. So I don't know whether they took it or it fell off and I didn't have time to look for it. First of all, it was dark, and I wanted to make sure that I get home, so I left without it. Now I only have one shoe, and I didn't know how I'm going to go to work tomorrow. I decided to cut off a piece of the blanket, wrapped it around my leg. That's how I went to work. And I remember it was raining and muddy. When we came in, one of the guard noticed that. He gave me a slip to go to the warehouse to get new shoes. When I went to the warehouse, I already knew from before, as younger the soldier is, and more meaner he is. If he's a middleman, he has a little passion for you. So when I went there, it's a big building, and there's a window, and you stay by the window, and you give him that. And when I saw it's a young man, I knew I'm going to have a problem. I gave him the slip for the shoes, and he not asking me what size I need. He just picked a pair of shoes, gave it to me. I went home, I tried them on. They were one size too small. I decided to come back. I asked him for one size larger. He said to me, I cannot hear you, come closer. I came closer, I repeated, same thing, he cannot hear me. But he wanted me to be face to face with him and then to say it. And when I did that, before I finished it, he gave me such a slap in the face. That's the first time I got dizzy for a second. He told me to go back home. So I go back home, hoping the next day is not going to snow, because if it snows, I'm going to get behind with the group. Sure enough, it was snowing. And we were marching, and I was getting a little behind, and the guard with a weapon who was near me, he told me, I'm going to give you two chances. Either I shoot you, because I can get behind just with you alone, or you take off your shoes, put them on your shoulder, and walk like that. And when we went for lunch around 12 o'clock, I had an idea, there's hundreds and hundreds of people. There must be somebody who's a small guy and the shoes are too big for him, and maybe mine are going to be good for him. I was lucky, after searching, I found one like that, and we were both happy. Mine was good for him and his shoes were good for me. Everybody told me that day, I know you're going to survive the camp. The eve of Passover, it was middle of April. When I was coming home from work and standing in line at the kitchen to get my food, there's a man going around randomly, and he said to you, would you like to come to a Passover Seder? In Barak 10, there's going to be a rabbi, and we're going to conduct services there. I said, yeah. After I eat my dinner, I come there. First, I want to tell you that I never finished my dinner. I had an idea I'm going to eat half of it, and half of it I'm going to eat when I come home. So now you have to find a place that nobody's going to find it. And when I came into the barak, I noticed on the ceiling there is like a hole. I'm going to put it in there. There's no way anybody could find it. And when I'm going to come back, I'm going to eat it. It's going to taste even better. When I got to the barak, I realized why he asked me, because I was the youngest one there. I was like 15 and a half. Everybody else there was in their 20s, 30s, and 40s, and he wanted me to ask the questions, which he did. When I was asking the questions, I said to myself, why am I asking these kind of questions? It reminded me of the wicked one, the one who said, why are you doing all this here? And that's what I said to myself, why am I doing this when I'm worse off than the prisoners in Egypt? Because the slaves in Egypt, they were able to go home every night. I cannot even go home. So why would I ask these kind of questions? But when your life is at stake, you're trying to hang on any little thing that might help you. I couldn't wait to come home, and as I was walking home, that's all was in my mind, how good the soup with the potatoes is going to taste. And when I got to the destination where I put it, it was no longer there. That night was for me very sad, hungry, and because I was thinking about it all the time, and somebody did find it. As it was going on, I was getting weaker and weaker, and they were taking you from camp to camp. Camp 1 was the strongest one, and when you get a little weaker, they put you in camp 2, and then in camp 3, and you got to make sure not to wind up in camp 7. Everybody knew that. The problem is with the selfishness, it was embedded in your brain. I knew that that's how it has to be from now on, to be selfish, not to share anything. But I got to a point that I no longer were able to produce, and when the Germans saw that, they put you in camp 7, Idemeyer and Joseph also, and we were there in the same barrack. And it was already in 1945, middle of April. Finally, after 2 days being there, the trains arrived again, but this time we were not able to stand like when we went to Auschwitz, because everybody was so weak. We were all sitting on the floor. And I was sitting against the wall from the wagon, and next to me was Joseph, and next to me was Idemeyer. The train stopped because American came to bomb. When that happens, everybody has to run out of the train going into the woods. I was able to get up, but Joseph couldn't get up, so he asked me to help him. And I was trying to pick him up. I couldn't do it by myself. I said, Idemeyer, you have to help me. He said, I don't have no strength. So I had to drop him, and we went out of the train. After the planes left, we came back in. Joseph was no longer there. We don't know what happened to him. When I was liberated, his brother knew I was together with him, and he asked me what happened to his brother. There's no way I was ready to tell him. I always change the subject. Maybe after 15, 20 years, I told him the whole story from the beginning when we were in camp and how we ended up there. Now we are arriving in Dachau, not to be there, to be exterminated. And it was a line, hundreds and hundreds of people. We arrived at 9 o'clock in the morning, and around 12 o'clock I was getting closer to the ovens and closer that I was able to see the building already. And after then I see an assessment next to me, or a guard. He's throwing down his weapon and he runs. We just didn't understand it. I turned around, I see the Americans came in. The next thing I knew, I'm not longer there, because when they saw how I looked like, they put me in a sanatorium, which is like a convalescent home. And I was there for about 2 months. I never knew what happened to my 2 brothers, whether they survived or not. But the older one, Abraham, he survived, and he went from camp to camp, from DP camp, to look for if there are any names that he knows that survived. Maybe some of his brothers, some of his sisters. And he read all the names, he couldn't find anybody. When he came to the convalescent home, he saw my name. And I remember I was reading the Bible, and I hear somebody opening the door. So it's a human nature, you want to see who's coming in. Sure enough, it's Abraham. That's the first time in my life that I was happy and sad. Happy, I saw my brother. Sad, I know if he came alone, the other one didn't survive. That's the first question I asked him. Where is my brother David? He said he died of starvation. After I recuperated, he said, right now, out of 9, it's just you and I. Maybe we should go home and see whoever is left. We went home, we found that another brother and another sister. So now we are 4 out of 9. And we realized no longer good in Romania, that we have to go somewhere else. So my older brother, he wound up in Belgium, in Antwerp. My brother Abraham and my sister, they wound up in Israel. And because I was under 21, I was able to come to the United States. They put you, it's called like a DP camp. Instead of being in a prison camp, we were in the barracks where the soldiers used to live. And everybody was signed up to go wherever they wanted to go. If you were able, you came to the United States. If not, you went to England or to Canada or to Israel, and you just have to wait for your next. I signed up to come here in 1945, and it took 2 years till my quota came up. What happened is you arrive in New York, and they assigned a social worker for you, and they actually ask you, what city would you like to settle? And I said, I'd like to settle in Philadelphia because my father had 3 sisters there and I know their address. So they said, okay, we're going to take you there. We're going to introduce you to another social worker and see what happens, whether they are willing to accept you. And I remember we went to the first one. Her name was Yada, my father's sister. And she said, how do I know that you are Ernie? Maybe you're somebody else. You're only saying you're Ernie. And we are not willing to accept you. We went to the other one. She said the same thing, like they were talking to each other about it. When we went to the third one, he believed that I'm earnest, but they are financially not able to take me because they only have a certain amount of room. In each room they have their own children, and there is no room for me there. So they decided to put me with a family room and board. So they paid the room and board, and they gave me $1.50 spending money. I couldn't speak not even one word of English. I only knew ice cream. And I liked ice cream very much. So the first thing with this money, I went into a luncheonette, and the waiter says, can I help you? I didn't know what that meant, but I figured I'm going to say ice cream. I said ice cream. Then she said, what flavor? I didn't know what that meant. And she kept on mentioning the flavor. So I figured I'm going to stop at whatever it is, because I like them all. And she gave me ice cream. That was my first experience on speaking English. And I really enjoyed the ice cream. And then they sent me to day school to learn English. And I was there for 4 months. Had another appointment with a social worker, and she said to me, you know enough English, you have to get a job and make a living. So I was limited because I never graduated high school. What kind of job could I get? In Europe, everybody thinks that you come here, nobody wants to work, you get any kind of job you want, and you find gold on the streets. That's how everybody knows. So anybody who has a chance to come here those days was more than happy. And a lot of them came over here, were not really too happy. They realized you cannot get any job you want to and as much money you want to. I remember I went to a dentist because I had a problem with a tooth, and I told him this story. And he said to me, you know what? My cousin is the president of the dental union. Maybe he could take you in, teach you how to be a dental technician. I was working there for 3 years, and I was already making a living. And all of a sudden, I was getting sick all the time. I used to go to the doctor almost every week with a different complaint. That he himself didn't know how to cure me. He decided to put me in a hospital to see what's really wrong with me. And they examined me, and they found out that the chemical they used for dentistry is damaging my lung. And I have to give it up immediately because there's no way I could breathe in that chemical. Is going to ruin my lung. So now I have to look for another job. So I figured the only thing that I really could do was work in a Jewish deli. They taught me how to cut locks, and then I became an expert in cutting locks, and I was working there for the longest time. And then I met somebody, also a survivor. She is from Czechoslovakia, and we were only going for about 6 months, and we got married. We had 3 sons together, and then she developed cancer because she was a heavy smoker. When I met her, I told her, you have to promise me 3 things. You're going to stop smoking, you're going to have to learn how to drive a car, and every Friday night you have to light candles. So out of the three, all I got out of her was lighting candles. And definitely from smoking, she developed lung cancer. From the time we discovered she has cancer, she only lived 6 months. And she left me with 3 teenagers. The youngest one was 11, and the oldest one was 17. I had to be their father, their mother, and cook for them and make sure they have clean clothes. And with all that, I still went to night school. I should get a diploma, a high school diploma. And I went there after 2.5 years. I graduated high school. For the first 6 months, I didn't go anywhere. So after 6 months, she had a brother, and he came over and he told me, it's enough for you to stay home. You have to go out in the world. You have to meet new people. You have to get a life for yourself. I didn't know how to do that because I grew up very shy. The first time I ever spoke to a girl was after I was liberated. Before, I never even spoke to any girls. When I graduated from high school, and then I was single for about 7 years. I got married again to somebody from Russia. Her name was Rosa, and she was much younger than me. And I figured this way I wouldn't have to go through what I went through with my first wife. But unfortunately, after 5 or 6 years, she developed Alzheimer's disease. I have to put her in a nursing home. So I put her in a nursing home. In the meantime, I became like an expert how to handle Alzheimer's patients. I always knew when my wife needed a piece of cake, or she needed a soda, or she needed water, or else. So I remember when I went into the nursing home, dinner time, to help her eat. Not only did I help her, I helped everybody around the table. You have to have a hobby to keep you busy when you're bored. When I say hobby, I don't mean to text message all the time. A hobby like to taking care of a dog, or taking care of a plant, or even to go in a nursing home to help somebody. It's always better to give than to take. It's always better to help somebody than somebody to help you. And for the teenagers, the only message I have for the younger generation to not to use the word hate. You shouldn't hate anybody. We are all here from God, and there is room in this planet for everybody. It's very easy to make up and forget. Most likely you're not talking because silly things, and you're going to see that your life is going to be better.